Hi, and thank you so much for popping by. My name is Dr. Rita Pobalozi. Do feel free to call me Dr. Bui. Before I get into it, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you who have been subscribing to the channel, commenting on this channel, and I really appreciate your feedback. Whether we agree or disagree, I think the important thing is that we are all informed on some of these issues, right? On my mind today are two stories that really highlight, magnify, and illuminate this concept called the social determinants of health, some of these factors that are making our communities unhealthy, such as poverty, such as these high margins of inequality, lack of employment, lack of the basic necessities in our communities, right? These are the issues that are of core focus and of core interest for me on this channel, the issues that I advocate about. One of the stories was in reference to a borehole that was being finally issued or being given to the community. The second story was about a telehealth clinic that was donated by an organization, a non-profit organization, Hope Health International, right? So in the case of the borehole itself cost 340,000. The conceptualization of this borehole was started in 2019, but it was finally handed over to the community in 2025. And you can see that this was a 6-year period, right? From the conceptualization of the borehole to it finally being handed over to the community. Now, why am I talking about that? Because this is where I can see the issue of bureaucracy, right? Government bureaucracy, and how it can take 6 years for a community to receive a basic need, right? So I think for me, it just speaks like there's not a sense of urgency. And then the other thing is that the borehole cost 340,000. But if you look at the period, the 6-year period that it took for this borehole to finally be handed over to the community, we are talking about a lot of additional costs within that 6-year period, right? And this is why bureaucracy can be a little stifling. Bureaucracy can absolutely be more expensive because the longer it takes, the more expense that are paid. And so even though the final amount for the borehole may have been 340,000, there are absolutely more additional costs around that within the 6-year period, right? Human resources, financial resources that would have absolutely been spent in that time period as well. So this is why bureaucracy can be, negative instead of positive, right? Because essentially bureaucracy is there, especially government bureaucracies, to ensure that, checks and balances, make sure that you are ordering from the right people, you are dealing with the right people, you are having the right services, etc. You are identifying the right experts, etc. However, in this case of the specific borehole that cost 340,000 for a period of 6 years, that's a lot. That I feel like that was overstretched, if you know what I'm saying. But another interesting aspect, specifically when it came to the story of the donation of the telehealth clinic, is just how we are talking about underserved populations. We're talking about marginalized populations. And when you talk about a digital service in that community, that underserved community, I'm already thinking of that disparity. If it's a digital service in an underserved community, how are they going to be accessing these services? Because I anticipate that they don't have smartphones or even the amounts to buy this data, right, to be able to communicate digitally with the doctor or the nurse or whoever is providing the health service in that clinic, right? But of course, as I said, I went back to other reports, news reports, which were indicating that in other instances, Orange Foundation Botswana had to come through to actually provide not only the mobile devices, but to also provide the actual data so that these populations living in these underserved communities can be able to communicate with that doctor or the nurse who's providing the health service. As I've said before, Botswana has done exceptionally well, particularly in the African region, in terms of making sure that economic development serves the people. But we cannot ignore the fact that we have these glaring margins of inequality and why we are donating boreholes in Botswana in 2025. And of course, something else that I thought about as I was reading, specifically the story to do with the telehealth clinic is it doesn't seem like I have enough information about the nonprofit organization, which is called Hope Health International, right? In fact, I don't have enough information about how many international nonprofit organizations do we have in Botswana. What is their scope and reach? What other activities are they involved in apart from the donation of telehealth clinics? And I looked at Bukongo, the Botswana Council on Non-Governmental Organizations, and they listed 80 non-profit organizations that operate in Botswana. But other sources are listing way more than that. So I think there's something there. You know, there's a story there, I think. I think there's a story there to really find out who are the nonprofit organizations and what are they doing in Botswana, specifically the international orientated nonprofits, because I think the local ones will obviously be subscribing to the Botswana Council on Non-Governmental Organizations. Alrighty, my friend, thank you so much for popping by. I hope you are having a lovely day where you are, but most importantly, I hope you're having a healthy day wherever you're watching me from. Bye.